Will the 57th year be the defining year in the history of Nigeria? What was on the mind of the founding fathers? Can we take another 57? How do we steer the ship of state to remain on course? Your views have never been so critical as now. Welcome to Nigeria at 57, in need of a rebirth. I am Ladi Akeredoluale.
Indeed, happy independence, Nigeria. I'm Ijoma Onyato. It's a day we reflect on how far that we've come as a nation. Indeed, it all began with the lowering of the Union Jack and then the hoisting of the green and white flag that signified the birth of the nation. But a lot has transpired since then. As a people, we've changed. Our politics has changed, from the way we choose our leaders to the entire political system. Some remember the role leadership played at that time of independence. Indeed, the political structure has also changed. The sense of pride that the founding fathers had at the time, do we still have that sense of pride? Some speak about the disenchantment even with the economy, talking about how the economy used to be based on agriculture, there was food sufficiency, and everybody had something to eat at the time. Today we see households, in terms of how much they have to spend, dwindling. Our currency used to be at par with other nations of the world. Where is the currency at the moment? Indeed, something has gone wrong. What's gone wrong? Chamberlain.
Well, yes, indeed. Happy independence, Nigeria. Well, there's a school of thought that says that in order for us to move forward, we have to have a common ground. We have to be on the same page to forge ahead. We must have a common ground, a working document, something that we all can get our bearing from, something that legalizes our cohesion, the Constitution. But as we've seen, even the opening statement of that Constitution, the 1999 Constitution, which says, "We the people," is a subject of debate, as it was not drafted by the people or subjected to a referendum. Yes, we are a Federal Republic of Nigeria, but the dominant question today is, what does it mean to be a federation?
Remains as official date for all Nigerians, as this marks the day when we attain one of the most precious of human desires, freedom. Over the years, the country has gone through trials and tribulations, but October 1st is always a day for celebrations. It is a day for thanksgiving, reflection, and rededication. It is also a day for remembrance.
Now, we have an array of eminent personalities from different walks of life. Indeed, they're from different fields, and we're going to draw on their wealth of experience and knowledge and dexterity in the quest to look at some of our national issues. Right, Chamberlain?
Well, yes, indeed. It's one of those times where we will have a lot of them coming on the program here today to give us what their impression is as to what is going on. Lots of people want to hear their perspective of where we are today and what does the future hold. And
it's interesting when you look at the headlines of, in the 1960s and the 1963, it's interesting to see that some of the issues that made headlines then, some of the things that were national issues, are still the same issues that we have here today.
Well, yes, indeed. That did sound surprising to a lot of people, but others thought, oh dear, so does that mean that not much has changed from the headlines?
I don't know, Vladimir.
Well, it's a question of deja vu all over again. Many of the issues in 1960 are still many of the issues today, except for one thing. Maybe the personalities have changed and maybe some of the subtexts have changed, but principally we're still dealing with the same issues of religion, with ethnicity, with federation, are we not? How do we divide things equitably? How do we develop and grow? How do we harmonize the country? How do we make it better? And so on. So again, 57 years on, we're still at that point. We're still discussing, we're still taking, I mean, if you take a look at the screen now, there's something about the Nigerian conference beginning today. Only 3 years ago, we had the last of maybe 10 or 11 conferences designed to address some of the issues we're talking about today. But this was from 1960.
Indeed, and if you think about it, from the 2014 constitution, you saw, conference even at the time, you see from even the other one, by Abacha and all that, you find that they're the same issues we're talking about. We're talking about what shall we do about unity, about our togetherness over and over again.
And look at that now, row on Republic Constitution. Now, exactly. I just talked about the fact that lots of people still making reference to the fact that they think that we should need to change.
That we need to go back. Now, even back, what we're talking about going back to, there were quarrels even about that too. And even now, there are people asking the question, you talk about us going back to what? That document, the 1963, 1960 Constitution, was not perfect. And if it was so perfect, how come it ended the way it ended in a coup d'etat in 1966? So, again, we go around, we come around, we go back, we go forward.
And even looking at some of the issues that are under there, you see Speaker told of treason verdict.
That's right.
Then again, the NAS also
have their own. Have their own, just like they do now. Let there be peace. That could be a headline from this morning.
Yeah.
That actually
very much so
from this morning, because everyone who's talked from yesterday, the goodwill messages and all of that for independence, this common thread, peace and unity.
And that's actually from September 1958, is it? Yeah, 1966.
1966. So again, that's now what, 51 years ago.
Yeah.
This is the same issue that we're talking about today. So again, I think maybe it brings us all to this sense of deja vu. Why are we still discussing this? Why almost 60 years later, why are we still discussing this?
Don't forget this
Workers' big strike today.
And then you know what has been this year.
We've just returned from, I think, 3 strikes. Johesu, the resident doctors, ASU, NASU.
All in the same breath.
All in the same breath. So then you wonder, this could probably be a headline for today.
Yeah, maybe just somebody doing a special feature.
So is it difficult then, or is that something people should worry about, the fact that even after this long, these same issues are still what we're talking about?
Well, it may not have been a source of so much worry if we could say that we had moved forward from the subtext of what was being discussed back then today. If we had moved to other things today, then of course people will be saying, well, we're not talking exactly of the same thing we're talking about then. But if you take a look at those stories and you take a look at what's happening today, essentially it's the same thing. People trying to fashion out positions for themselves, people trying to ensure that they get what is their due, and pointing out where government has been inefficient, where government needs to improve, and so on. It's the same thing that we're talking about today.
And we have a lot of people who also highlight what they think leadership, the role that leadership has played in all of this, and they think that, look, do we have a different set of leaders now? What happened then, or what's different now? How come we're talking about almost the same kind of subject, just that perhaps in some cases different persons?
That's right.
And so they just think that, look, I mean, some people joke about it. They say, look, if you leave this country for go on holiday,
or you're back and you didn't miss anything.
You didn't miss anything.
Apart from the fact that some are now saying, okay, well, there are calls for change, so change of leadership, change of issues.
There have always been these calls. Again, you see, you go back to it, you see there have always been these calls for better leaders, more improved leadership, a committed leadership. This has always been the case, even before independence.
And it's interesting that one successive government after the other is calling for a better one.
Yes, for a better one, they change, they promise to do something differently or promise to do things differently. And so, but if everyone along the line had done things differently, some people would argue that, in fact, they did do things differently, and that's why we are where we are. Because there's also the absence of continuity in some of the policies identified as being essential to general development. A new person comes, throws away what the previous person has done, starts afresh. So we find ourselves taking 1 step forward, 3 steps backwards.
But if there's anything that we agree on now, is that something needs to happen, and quickly too.
And so that's why the question, can we take another 57?
Can we?
How do we progress?
Well, I don't know if we can take another 57 if it is going to be exactly like the previous 57.
So it means what? We do something? What do we do? How do we go about it? So perhaps indeed, our guest will highlight on all of those issues, and perhaps a lot more as we progress.
Indeed.
So we'll take our first break, I believe. Yeah. And when we come back, we'll start off straight away with the discussion segment. So please stay on with us.